Muted.
Welcome everyone to the second webinar in our Google Analytics Power webinar series. My name is Eric Fettman. I will be presenting the webinar today along with Roberto Croce from Google. If you joined us for our last webinar in the series, the first webinar, which was about conversion tracking, we hope that you enjoyed that webinar and welcome back to this webinar. If this is the first in the series that you're joining on, we will just go ahead and provide a little bit of background and then we will get right into our subject for today. So there's me, Eric Fettman. I am analytics coach and trainer with Enor. We are based in California, offices throughout the United States, offices in Europe and in MENA, Dubai, Qatar, Saudi. And special welcome to Roberto. Roberto is responsible for communication and sales of Google Analytics Premium in Southern Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And I've had the opportunity to work with Roberto in training several times, and he always has very useful information. I always learn a lot from Roberto, so I'm very happy to welcome him back to this webinar. Here's a little bit of background information book that we are coming out with next year, hopefully by the end of May. Here's a little bit of background about through this last time, so we're not going to spend too much time on the background today. We'll just go through this quickly. Here are our offices. There I go again, talking and not showing the visuals at the right time. Here's the visual of our company locations. Here's a little bit more about what we offer as a company: web, mobile analytics, qualitative analytics, which are very critical as part of the optimization process, and social analytics as well, including sentiment analysis. Here are some of the clients that we have the opportunity to work with. And here are some of our MENA-based clients whom we also are fortunate to work with. Here are some of the tools that we have developed and that we offer for a variety of analytics purposes. If you go to e-nor.com and look for tools, you will see all of these analytics scripts and tools and resources available for your disposal. By the way, it's a little bit of housekeeping. If you need to ask a question during the webinar, just go ahead in the GoToWebinar panel and ask your question, type your question into the panel, and we will make sure to look at those questions during Q&A. We will have a few minutes of Q&A at the end of the session. I will walk through my campaign presentation first, and Roberto will do a special presentation on double-click integration, and that will be followed by a Q&A session. So let's go ahead and get officially started. Google Analytics Power Webinar 2, Google Analytics Campaign Tracking for Accurate Traffic Attribution. So we're going to talk during today's webinar, in one way very specific, in one way a little bit more general. We will talk specifically about campaign tracking, but we will also look a little bit more broadly at the important subject of attribution, where traffic is coming from, how to know where your traffic is coming from, and how to even know where to attribute your traffic and your conversions to, sometimes even if they did not click through. So we're going to look specifically at campaign tracking, and we're also going to consider attribution somewhat more broadly. So here's the specific agenda. We're going to start off at the basic level. We're going to look at the source medium report. Make sure that we understand some fundamental terminology like source and medium. Sometimes you look at these terms, and I'm familiar with them because I work with them every day, but they may not be readily familiar. So we want to make sure that we're all good with some of the fundamental terminology. We will look at the referrals report as well, make sure that we understand what a referral means. We'll look at the channels report, also relatively new as in maybe a couple of years old at this point in Google Analytics, but still kind of not necessarily readily understandable right out of the box. We're going to go further into the channels discussion and talk about channel definitions and customization. Then we're going to spend a good amount of time talking about campaign tracking, a really critical issue, fundamental issue in making sure that your Google Analytics data is as accurate, helpful as it can be in indicating where your traffic is coming from. So we're going to spend a good amount of time on campaign tracking. Make sure to look at the multi-channel funnel report. Sometimes an overlooked set of reports in Google Analytics, but really important in understanding how your channels are not only driving conversions, but how they are assisting in conversion. So the multi-channel funnel reports will give us a broader perspective on which channels are assisting conversions, even if they're not the last channel to drive a conversion. So this will tie in our conversion discussion from last webinar to our acquisition and campaign discussion from today's webinar. We're going to talk a little bit about data-driven attribution, getting into more of an advanced premium topic. We're also going to look at double-click integration with Roberto. And there's actually one little item that I think I missed on the agenda here. We're going to look very briefly at campaign tracking for apps as well to measure click-throughs to the app marketplaces. And then we are going to have a few minutes of Q&A. And we're going to try to leave a few minutes before the hour because Roberto will have to depart right at the top of the hour, so we will leave a few minutes at the end. Oh, there we go, some double transitions. Okay. Acquisition section of Google Analytics, source medium report. Now, if you've been using Google Analytics for a while, probably know what source medium report means, but let's just step back and make sure we understand what we are really looking at in the source medium report. So acquisition, what does acquisition mean? Acquisition means how am I acquiring my users, or speaking in day-to-day language, where are they coming from? Where are my users coming from? Source medium report, referrals report, we're going to take a look at those two reports to begin with. Okay, what are source and medium? Well, for all traffic, all visitors in Google Analytics records a source value and a medium value. And source is a little bit more specific a way to describe where the traffic is coming from, and medium is somewhat more general. So we see here we have organic. We have three organics because medium is a more general way to describe the traffic, and organic is one of the default mediums. Referral is another default medium. And source is more specific. So associated with organic as a medium, we have more specific sources. The same way associated with a referral, we could have any website that someone is clicking through from. So medium is general, source is more specific, and direct traffic kind of has a stand-in value for both source and medium. So for direct traffic, the source value would be direct and the medium would be none. One of the things that we're going to look at in our campaign discussion is trying to keep traffic out of direct that really does not belong in direct. We have a lot of traffic that ends up in direct that would be more useful not being recorded as direct traffic. So that is going to be one of our primary objectives when we are talking about campaign tracking. As we mentioned, the default medium values are referral, organic, none, and email in some cases. Email in some cases, but in a lot of cases we are going to need to help Google Analytics to recognize email as a medium value. The acquisition referrals report in Google Analytics. The referrals report is a subset of the source medium report, and it shows click-throughs specifically from other websites that don't have campaign tags. So any traffic that is recorded with referral as the medium will show up in the referrals report. So a click-through from any other website that Google Analytics does not recognize as an organic search engine. Even notice social links. By default, if someone clicks through to your website from Facebook or from another social site, that will also appear in the referrals report. It will appear in network referrals in the social section of Google Analytics, but it will also be integrated into the referrals report. But we are also going to talk about making sure that we campaign tag as much of our own social traffic as we can, because a lot of our social traffic can also be interpreted as direct traffic without help from campaign parameters. If you click into any of the referrals, you can see the referral path. So if you click down into any of the websites that are listed in the referral report, you could see the referral path. What's the referral path? It's the exact page that someone clicked through to you from on another website. So it just gives you more context than seeing only the website. So you're seeing the specific page that someone clicked through from. So we're understanding the context of the click-through. This is just a little bit of an aside, but whenever we're navigating in Google Analytics, whenever we want to gain even more context about an interaction, make sure that you take advantage of the secondary dimension. So if we want to see for any of our traffic sources where the click-through initiated where it initiated and where the landing page was on our website, all we have to do is apply landing page as a secondary dimension. So that's just a little bit more context. In any analysis that you're doing, make sure to take advantage of secondary dimension because it allows you to align two dimensions. And of course, we're not just looking at the dimension values, we're looking at the performance. So if we see the one combination of source and landing page had a 73% bounce rate, while another combination had only a 36.85% bounce rate. So one combination was doing much better than the next. So that's an opportunity to look at the pages, look at the path from the referral to the landing page and see what's working and try to optimize, try to get more of your bounce rates to look like 36% or even lower rather than 73%. Okay, let's look at the acquisition channels report, and let's make sure that we understand what a channel is. So we talked about source, we talked about medium. So all traffic coming into Google Analytics has a default source value, which is a little more specific way to describe where the traffic is coming from. All the traffic coming in has a medium value, which is more general. We looked at that, such as Google as source and medium as organic. But what is a channel? A channel is a grouping of your traffic based on source and medium value. So it's not a regular dimension like source and medium. It's kind of a mashup dimension based on medium value. So it's kind of not its own thing. Channels are based primarily on source and medium values. Now, let's just take a look and Google Analytics default channel grouping definitions, and we'll see what the default channels are in Google Analytics. So let's go ahead and Google Analytics channel definitions. That'll work. So when we go into our channels report, there are 8 default definitions that could appear by default. There are 8 channels that can appear by default without any additional input from us. Now, why is it important to know that there are 8 default channel definitions and to know where to access the definitions? Well, it's important because when we start looking at all the different scenarios that are tracked in a way that it can be inaccurate, we are going to be able to refer to these definitions to know how to campaign tag our traffic. So we're going to see that a lot of traffic by default ends up as direct in Google Analytics. So if we want to tell Google Analytics that this traffic is not direct, it's actually email, it's an email click-through, we can look at the channel definitions and we could see that medium exactly matches email. This is going to provide more context when we are going through the process of campaign tagging our links, but for now, just remember this resource, default channel grouping definitions in Google Analytics. There are 8 channels that are defined by default, and we can expand these definitions and see what the definitions are, and that will help us campaign tag our internal links. So just let's keep this resource in mind for right now. Let's go back to our presentation. Okay. We talked about the first point here, which campaign parameters do I need to use to get my traffic into the right buckets, into the right channels, and also which channels are not defined by default. That's another takeaway that we can get from our default channel definitions. Which channels are not defined by default? There are 3 that come to mind. Remarketing is not defined by default. Affiliate traffic is not defined by default. QR code traffic, if you are using QR codes, that's not defined by default. And another important point to recognize here is that we are going to be able to define our own channels, to change any default channel definition. So within the channels report, we are going to be able to customize our channels in any way that is most useful for us. Okay, so campaign tracking. And we're going to come back and look at the channels report as well. Campaign tracking. What are we talking about when we are talking about campaign tracking? First of all, for basic terminology, when we say campaign tags or campaign parameters, it means the same thing. So even in the course of today's webinar, I'll probably use the term campaign tag and campaign parameter pretty interchangeably. They mean the same thing in this context. Tag can mean different things in different contexts. In Google Tag Manager, tag means basically a piece of JavaScript. In this case, a tag or parameter will designate query string parameters that we add to the end of our URLs that override the default source and medium tracking, and also are going to populate the campaigns report specifically. So when we have an inbound link that has this extra information added to it, we are going to override the default source and medium tracking. We are going to tell Google Analytics, you don't have to do any interpretation. I'm telling you what the medium value is. I'm telling you what the source value is. And in addition to that, I'm providing one more piece of information, campaign, as an additional parameter. And that additional UTM campaign will populate the campaigns report. When do we need to use campaign parameters? There are two basic scenarios, and this is important. This is the core idea behind campaign tracking. So let's make sure that we really understand these two scenarios. We need to add campaign parameters to inbound links in the following cases. When the source and medium values could be recorded inaccurately in Google Analytics by default. It's not Google Analytics' fault. It needs help. It needs help when there's not a referring website. That's one scenario when we'll need to add campaign parameters. Another scenario is when the source medium values are accurate, but they're too general to be useful. Aggregation needed. If you think of a banner campaign where your banner could run on 800 different websites, you could get click-throughs from 100 or 1,000 or 10,000 different websites. Just to have those websites recorded as referrals will be too general, will be not aggregated enough for you to be able to report on the performance of the campaign. So for acquisition tracking, Google Analytics needs your help. So to reiterate, first question to ask for any of the campaigns that you are responsible for issuing, for getting visitors to your website. First question to ask is there a referring website? Second question to ask is there a referring, if there is a referring website, is the referral information useful for reporting? So think of those two really fundamental questions for all traffic that you are generating. Is there a referring website? And if there is the reporting based on referral going to be useful for my reporting, or will I need campaign parameters to help me with the reporting? Okay. Let's actually make sure that we consider all of these scenarios. Email traffic. Let's think of a click-through from an email that you send out. You send out a newsletter campaign, and that is opened up in the Gmail app, or it's opened up in Outlook, or it's opened up in Microsoft Mail. Is there a referring website that the click-through is coming from? If someone opens that email in Outlook and clicks through, and you get 10,000 of those click-throughs, and of those 10,000 click-throughs, 200 people sign up for your newsletter. So that's a great success for that conversion point. But that click-through from email will show up as direct in Google Analytics because there's no referring information. There's no referral information. So email, a lot of email click-throughs by default will show up as direct. A banner campaign that you're running, how is that going to show up in Google Analytics? Referral, which is not incorrect. It's not so much that it's incorrect, but you're not going to want to go through the referrals report and try to figure out what was a regular referral and what was part of a banner campaign. Again, if you have 160 different websites that are driving traffic from a banner campaign, you're not going to be able to readily identify that traffic in the referrals report. Remarketing, similar to banner, will show up as referral. Pay-per-click would show up by default as organic. The only thing that Google Analytics would know is that it matches its list of organic search referrals. So pay-per-click traffic would show up by default as organic. As a note, and I think that I Forgot to include this slide in the presentation, but for pay-per-click AdWords traffic, make sure that you are using auto tagging. So we won't need to add campaign parameters manually to our AdWords traffic. Make sure that you use auto tagging. So the process for adding manual campaign parameters is not necessary for AdWords traffic. We can enable auto tagging between Google Analytics and Google AdWords. Click-through from a Twitter or Facebook app is the next scenario. You send out a social campaign. Those click-throughs by default from an app are going to show up as direct. And most social click-throughs do occur on apps and not on websites. So in the Twitter app as opposed to from Twitter website. Affiliate links would show up just as referrals. Click-through back from a PDF. Again, a PDF is its own application. It's Acrobat or Acrobat Reader or potentially another application. That would be interpreted as direct traffic, any kind of app. If you have your own app and you're referring from your app to your mobile website, that would also show up as direct. Referral, oh, we could skip this one. Sorry, let's skip referral. Let's knock this one out. Press release, how would that show up? That would show up also as referral. So these are all of the scenarios in which traffic could be misattributed. Again, it's not a flaw in Google Analytics. It's just the Google Analytics as a tool does the best job that it can with the information that it does have. But all of these scenarios could be misinterpreted. So this is what we need to address. This is the problem that we need to address when we're talking about campaign tracking, when we're talking about providing additional hard-coded acquisition information to Google Analytics. We're going to tell Google Analytics, you don't have to interpret all of these scenarios on your own. I am going to tell you exactly how you should interpret all of this type of traffic. Okay, how are we going to make sure that our campaign parameters are added to our URLs? We will quickly go over to the Enor URL builder. Google has a URL builder that you can use as well. It's a basic tool that does the same thing. Let me just bump this up a little bit. So instead of sending out a newsletter and just sending people to mysite.com, instead of just including this basic link, what we are going to do is add additional information to the link. Medium is going to be email, and we know that we want to use email because we saw it in our default channel definition. So we know for Google Analytics to bucket the traffic as email in the channels report, we know that the medium value has to match email exactly. So that's what we are going to provide as the medium value. Source, often for an email you can use a list name, campaign name. Let's say that we're sending out this email today. So let's say 2015 11 30-year month day newsletter. So we have our URL. We have medium value. So we're telling Google Analytics, regardless of where this click-through occurs, I want you to count this as email. Main list will be our traffic source, and campaign name is specific. That's the most specific piece of information. We can go ahead and click Generate URL, and now we can include this URL in our email instead of the basic URL that doesn't have campaign parameters. And this will tell Google Analytics, regardless of where this click-through occurs from, this is what I want you to record as medium value, source value, and I'm providing us an additional piece of information that will populate the campaign's report. And this, of course, will show us where our efforts are going to, where our ROI, where the return on our investment is being generated. If we don't have correct traffic attribution, we cannot understand the results of our marketing efforts. We cannot understand which channels that we are working on, that we are investing time and money in, which channels are driving the results that we want, the conversions that we want. So let's go ahead and hop back to UTM medium, UTM source, UTM campaign. Always going to be the campaign parameters, the campaign tags that we add. So by adding campaign parameters, we get a few benefits. We have more meaningful source and medium values. We have better channel groupings. And we also populate the campaigns report. So the campaigns report will show us specifically performance of any traffic that we have tagged with campaign parameters. And this is independent of landing page. Campaign and landing page are not necessarily tied together. A campaign in Google Analytics is defined specifically by any link that has campaign parameters at the end of it. And you don't have to set up a campaign at any point in Google Analytics. You don't have to go into the admin and say, okay, I'm setting up a campaign for our social campaign that we are running now, or our banner campaign that we're running now. You only have to add campaign parameters to your inbound links to populate the campaigns report within Google Analytics. That is the only thing that you need to do. Okay, now that we know the basic mechanics of campaign tracking, we want to make sure to be consistent. Consistency is really everything in campaign tracking. Consistency in remembering to use campaign parameters, and also in using them in a consistent way. If you are inconsistent in your campaign tracking, then you get fragmentation of the data. And as a general principle in analytics, whenever you have fragmentation of values that should be the same, you make your analysis much more difficult. So in this example, we see fragmentation of Facebook as a source. We see fragmentation of your email list as a source. So we're going to want to make sure to be as consistent and clean hierarchical as possible when we are defining our campaign tags. And we have a few tools that will help with that. Okay, we also want to use campaign parameters on QR codes. If you're using QR codes, add campaign parameters within short links for sure. With your social short links, take a long URL with the campaign parameters and compress them into a short link. They will expand with the campaign parameters. And also any kind of vanity URLs, any kind of redirects. If you have a vanity URL on a billboard, make sure to redirect that vanity URL with campaign parameters so you can see the effect of that billboard or that print ad or wherever you might be posting a vanity URL. Okay. One place not to use campaign parameters would be on an internal campaign. So this is actually taken from today's Cyber Monday. I'm coming to you from the United States, and Cyber Monday is the big pre-Christmas buying day online. It's supposedly when everyone goes back to work, and on Monday at work everyone is buying online. So that's Cyber Monday. So this is the actual banner that's running on the Gap website. You may be tempted, if you were the analyst at Gap, to add campaign parameters to the click-through on this big banner that's occupying the homepage, but we don't want to do that. Don't use campaign parameters for internal links. Why not? Because once you change the source and medium value, you start a new session. And what that does is that it breaks the session, and you no longer can see what actual traffic source drove the traffic. So if Gap is spending money on AdWords and someone clicks through, if they've spent $3 on a click-through from AdWords and they've added campaign parameters to this banner, as soon as someone clicks the banner, the Gap Analytics, Google Analytics for Gap will no longer see that click-through originated from AdWords. So it's a big problem. So don't use campaign parameters for internal links. What we can always use to safely track internal clicks is generate an event, as we spoke about briefly during our last session. So we can always safely generate an event. So if the Gap folks wanted to track the click-through on that internal banner, they could just add that little extra piece of scripting, either manually or through in a more automated way through Google Tag Manager, and they could safely generate an event without affecting any of the acquisition data. So important takeaway, never use campaign parameters on any kind of internal links. There may be internal campaign tracking at some point in Google Analytics. For now, if you need to track a click-through on an internal link, use an event instead. That is always safe. Also, as a note, for email tracking, most email systems will actually allow you to automate your campaign tracking. So this is actually from MailChimp. For each of your campaigns, you can enable Google Analytics link tracking, and what it asks you for is the campaign name. So the source and medium it will take care of. Medium is always going to be email. Source will always be your list name, and then your campaign name will be whatever you provide in the interface. But this allows you to more consistently track your email, to more consistently campaign tag your emails. So we get consistency with UTM medium, UTM source, and then you provide UTM campaign. Okay, also for consistency, Campaignalyzer is actually a tool that we've developed for enterprise campaign tagging. Enterprise level, if you have many people who are working on campaign tagging, you could look at a tool like Campaignalyzer. You could potentially build an internal tool. We've worked with clients who have built their own internal tools for consistency and campaign tracking across the enterprise. Consistency really is key. Or you can go ahead and download a worksheet that we provided right from this webinar. If you click into your panel, there's a handout section. So you can go ahead and download a worksheet that we've provided that will automate the link tracking, will automate the campaign tagging of your links in terms of the formatting that we saw in the URL Builder tool, and will just allow you to keep track of the campaign names, medium, source values that you've used so that you can enforce more consistency. So you can go ahead and download that worksheet now. Okay, as a note, sometimes when we first learn about campaign parameters, we think that we have to campaign all inbound links. We don't have to campaign tag all inbound links. A regular click-through from a referral website is, in many cases, specific enough. So if you have a click-through from partnersite.com, it's going to be specific enough. And also, some of your social links are beyond your control. If other people are providing links to you from Facebook, you cannot necessarily control that with campaign parameters, but for all of your own social campaigns that you're putting out, you should use campaign parameters. Okay, a few really quick follow-up items that we'll go through in just a couple of minutes because we want to make sure that we have enough time for Roberto's discussion. For mobile app installs, to use campaign parameters, there's slightly different formatting. So if you want to see in your app reporting click-throughs from any other referring source to Google Play, to see which traffic sources are leading to your Google Play downloads, you can use this version of the URL Builder, and you can Google Android Google Play URL Builder or just Google Analytics Google Play URL Builder to access this URL Builder and to get more information on that process. Same thing for iOS. Google, I'm sorry, this is not supposed to be Google Play URL Builder. Sorry for this typo here. Well, it's more than a typo. This should be the App Store URL Builder. So this is the iOS App Store URL Builder. So this is a version for the app for Google Play. Sorry about that. Okay. Very quickly, channel customization. We can add a new set of channel. We could add a new channel to our Google Analytics channels. We can customize an existing channel or create a completely new set of channels. We talked about which channels are not part of the default channel grouping. Remarketing is one example, or QR code or affiliate links. So let's go ahead and see, just take a couple of seconds and see how we could define our define a new channel in our channel grouping. We could go ahead and click Channel Settings, Channel Grouping, go ahead and click into Default Channel Grouping. Define a new channel. Let's call this Remarketing. And let's go ahead and say that medium value, if we are using another remarketing network besides Google, and we have added remarketing as our medium value, we know that if we've tagged our links with medium equals remarketing, we have this as a rule to work with when we're defining our own channels. And for our Google AdWords remarketing campaigns, which will just come in with CPC as the medium, we could say, if we've added remarketing to our campaign names, we can also add that as another rule for remarketing. So we could define our own channel. And we're going through this very quickly. We have more information about this. We have detailed information about this on the Google Analytics, on the eNOR blog. So for channel customization, now that we've added our own channel definition, we can break out remarketing, or we could break out any type of traffic that is important for you to report on and that other people in your organization would be thinking of as an important subset of your traffic. So we can definitely add any kind of customization to the channels report that we want. Very quickly, multi-channel funnel reports. We want to use the multi-channel funnel reports to see conversion assist, not just last click attribution, but which channels are helping conversions in terms of assist. So we can also customize the channels in the multi-channel funnel reports. And also very quickly, if you have Google Analytics Premium, we can also pull in the customized channels into the data-driven attribution reports. So here's an example. Sorry, we didn't highlight it, but down at the bottom we have remarketing broken out as its own channel within the attribution reports in Google Analytics, and we could see how much credit algorithmically Google Analytics is giving to a channel when it serves at different touch points in the path leading up to conversion. We could see that at the bottom of this slide. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Roberto at this point, and Roberto is going to talk to us about double-click integration. So we're going to go ahead and pull up Roberto's slides. And Roberto, do you want to go ahead and take it away?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks a lot, Eric, for your session, and a pleasure for me being here with you all today. First of all, before stepping into the topic of my session today, so the double-click integrations. I'd like to give a thank you to Inor for inviting me to this series of webinars. I really love this kind of trainings and webinars we can do together, and I'm really looking forward to your feedbacks to make sure Google and our partners can do a good job to give you good content and good food for thought when it comes to measurement and analytics. So a pleasure for being with you all today. I'm Roberto. I'm leading the enterprise sales, enterprise analytics sales for Southern, Eastern Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And I'm an old double clicker, so it's a pleasure to discuss with you today about the added value of integrating double click data with analytics data. So if we can move to the next slide. Basically, the increasing number of paid advertising options can be challenging for an analytics to track, particularly when it comes to correlating impressions data with website conversions that do not result from a direct ad click-through. So this is the real thing that is happening when we are talking about a modern analytics solution. Analytics is going through a major transformation. So in the past, analytics was a tool to reactively measure websites, to reactively measure the behavior of users on a website, mainly desktop properties. What is happening today is that we are plugging analytics within the advertising world with the data-driven marketing to provide an end-to-end solution to measure effectiveness of online campaign through the conversion. If we move to the next slide. So this is where we see that leading organizations are shifting to programmatic marketing using integrated platforms. And this is the key. So this is the shift that is happening in the market. Basically, it is that leading organizations are adopting solutions that are able to natively integrate ad-centric data with site-centric data. That means that are able to provide as much as possible a unified view of the customer journey from his first exposure to advertising to his behavior on the website and then to the conversion on the property's mobile desktop, to provide a way to better measure the effectiveness of the digital campaign in one single place with one integrated platforms. So if we move to the next slide. So I would like to this, because the double-click integration is not really a sexy topic because it's a little bit complex. We need to talk about tagging, we need to talk about click-through, view-through, we need to talk about a bunch of technical stuff. But I wanted to try to make it a little bit simpler through using different personas and try to tell you a story to describe what these integrations are about. So let's try to use this persona. So we have Asli. Asli, she's a classist, 30 years old, just married. Let's say she lives in Brooklyn. She really wants a dog. She likes Lilliputzer, J. Crew. She represents a 25-year-old female. Then we have Feraz. Feraz is a male. He is dad of 2 girls. He has been in the analytics industry for a long time. He has an office in Dubai, works a lot. He represents the target of dads, let's say, just for the purpose of our simplified story. And then we have Queen Bee. Queen Bee, Beyonce, very fashionable, always looking for new cool place, just traveled to Iceland, is 2 years old, blue. She represents the target of moms, let's say, a little bit stretched, but let's say these are the 3 characters that are made up our story. So when it comes to Google Analytics Premium, all of our clients use GA Premium for similar reasons, if you want. So for sure, they want to better understand their customers, so this is key. Most of them, and if not all of them, of course, they want to increase the ROI. And they want to give their customers a better online experience. So they need better data. So let's start from the beginning. So if we move to the next slide. So better analyze your data means that the first difference between a Google Analytics standard account and a premium account is the data limits. So with Google Analytics Premium, you can send us way more data, 100x more data that you can send with a standard tool. You can have way more custom dimensions, 200 custom dimensions, 200 custom metrics. You have better freshness. You have, a more reliable infrastructure and backend to leverage your data. But not only you can send more data, you can analyze all of your data without running into the sampling issues that you might run into the standard tool. So as a data-driven marketer, I believe you want to base your decisions on accurate data sets. And if the data sets are sampled, you risk losing the full story. So let's say you're running a report to see which person are most interested in a certain product, and this is all of your data. This is what we see in the slide. The results would show you that, you know, all of these characters, so Asli, Faraz, Beyonce, are all interested. But if you were to take a random sample, you might end up getting different results. For example, if I'm taking a sample now, I don't have the animation on the slide, but let's say we take a sample now, you will see that Faraz completely disappears. So I have no idea that he is interested or not, and it could be losing out on important customer time. But this is only the beginning. So this is, okay, we need to rely on a better infrastructure. So that's why at some point Google introduced Google Analytics Premium. But when it comes to the real value proposition of Google Analytics Premium, here it comes the topic of Google Analytics Premium is a platform that can integrate also ad-centric data. And it can do that natively if we are integrating double-click data. So if we move to the next slide, let's say that specifically, let's say in addition to GA Premium, which again, it helps you measure the customer behavior on your side, we need to talk a little bit about Google's double-click products, because Google's double-click suite help you measure the customer behavior before your customers get to your site. Double-click suite is a complex suite because there are different products. So you have an ad server, you have the campaign manager, and on top of the campaign manager, you have two bidders. One for search, double-click search, to buy search ads programmatically, and one for display, to buy display ads programmatically, which is double-click bid manager. Let's start exploring the less sexy integration, which is between Google Analytics Premium and double-click campaign manager. Double-click campaign manager is the double-click campaign management product for display ads. It tracks not only whether someone clicked on your ad, but also whether they viewed it. So with the integration between double-click campaign manager and Google Analytics Premium, you can actually see the entire customer journey from before the customers get to your site to what they do on your site. Let's say Zappos, for example, is using both DCM and GA Premium, but don't have them integrated. And that one of our characters in this slide for us saw two shoe ads. He didn't click, but then went back and searched for Zappos, and later purchased a pair of shoes on the site. All of the credit goes to search, but that's not really fair because those ads influence this behavior. So with the DCM integration, so with the double-click campaign manager integration, you can actually track whether Faraz saw these ads and later converted, and give the right amount of credit to display. No tagging is necessary. Everything is done for you if you have these pieces of technologies, because it's auto-tagging integration between Google Analytics Premium and double-click campaign manager. So the real added value of Google Analytics Premium with double-click campaign manager is that you can get all these impressions data coming from the double-click suite into Google Analytics Premium, and you can use Google Analytics Premium as a centralized platform to better understand where these impressions data come into the customer journey at traffic source level, multi-channel funnel level, and attribution level. And now we are going to explore a little bit more these dimensions. So if we move to the next slide. So first of all, again, this integration, double-click campaign manager and GAP, first of all, it helps measure the end-to-end campaign effectiveness, because end-to-end campaign effectiveness from the visits to engagement to conversion metrics. So you can answer questions like, did I drive traffic? Did I engage with my custom content on a specific section? Did my advertising discount work on driving conversions? And so on and so forth. More importantly, you can measure the view-through visits now. So it's not only about the last click, it's not all about click-through. You can have the impressions data, you can measure the view-through, you can measure the impact of display impressions on your funnel, on your conversion, on your multi-channel funnel. So this gives you comprehensive insight into the impact of display. And you can drill down. You can drill down into all these double-click dimensions coming from advertising. So you can measure along DCM dimensions. You can use DCM double-click dimensions in segmentation. So you can, for example, analyze, let's say, the behavior of users visiting from a double-click campaign at any level, from the campaign level to a specific creative. So it's really easy to act on DCM data. And again, it's a quick setup. It's auto-tagging. So this is what we really mean by end-to-end measurement, as it provides a complete picture of your campaign effectiveness. So let's move to the next slide. Again, another dimension where this value is evident is at multi-channel funnel level, because you know how useful multi-channel funnel and attribution modeling are, but doing attribution well means measuring all of your channels. So we are now making the double-click data available in multi-channel funnel and attribution modeling. So the real value is that you can see where display clicks and impressions show up in the conversion path. So for example, you can see which channels work best with display. For example, let's say you can answer questions like, did user see your ad, then click on an email before converting, or was it paid search? Or again, which specific creative generated the most assets, and so on. This is really key. So this data helps craft an integrated marketing strategy, as you can now truly understand the role of display. Since display impressions and clicks are available in the conversion path, you can use various attribution models to assign credit to display. So if we move to the next slide, you can use various models, as we were saying, to assign credit to various channels, including display. So you could use, for example, a first interaction model to assign greater credit to all awareness created by the display in the first place, upper funnel. But you can also use this tool to apply multiple attribution models and compare them side by side with all of your channels reflected. So you can create custom channels and see side by side different attribution models and see what works best for your business specifically. Eventually, you can also create custom attribution models by weighting impressions in creative ways in order to see, for example, how much credit they should get in the conversion process. Basically, now that we have the path data, it allows you to credit it and quickly drill down into the channels, campaigns, keywords, creative you want to understand. So it's really easy to use, and it's the best to think of to go beyond the last click and start understanding the impact of the investment you do in different media channels one to the other. We can move to the next slide. So in summary, basically, again, taking this integration, the first integration we discussed it, DoubleClick Campaign Manager and Google Analytics Premium, what you can expect out of this integration is that you can better measure the end-to-end effectiveness of your display digital campaigns, and you can have at your hands an holistic attribution, including display impressions, with no, great effort, because it's just plugging these technologies together. Moving to the next slide, we also have an integration with DoubleClick Bid Manager. DoubleClick Bid Manager represents all the programmatic world of buying media programmatically, impression per impression, knowing which is the audience plugged behind that impression in real time. So DoubleClick Bid Manager is exactly our real-time bidding tool. So if you have a target audience, for example, you tell DBM to send them to a specific ad. Let's say you have both DBM and Google Analytics standard, so you haven't integrated the products. You could create remarketing lists with DBM, and this would be based on very basic DBM metrics, like did Referrals come to the site, did they recently purchase, something like that. This is better than nothing, but it means that your targeting is not really, you're not really focusing your targeting, you're not super focusing your targeting. You can do better. For example, look at this shoe in the slide. Would you think he's interested in buying, I mean, let's get back to our story. We have 3 characters. Who would you think within our 3 characters is best interested in buying this shoe? Let's say without integration, if you were to just send a remarketing list based on site visits, Referrals would see an ad for this shoe and he wouldn't want it. With the integration, so if we integrate Google Analytics Premium and DoubleClick Bid Manager, you can build remarketing lists based on the GA data, like did someone look at this shoe, and do they also typically buy high heels, whatever. That would narrow out for us, for example, and even narrow out probably Usley, and we would get, targeting the Beyoncés of the world, and they're getting a message that matters to them. And again, this technology is auto-tagging, so just leveraging the first-party data about your users, the users you can track with your analytics solution, you can activate this audience data in the media buying programmatic world by linking Google Analytics Premium and DoubleClick Bid Manager to achieve a better ROI of your campaigns. So if we move to the next slide. So DoubleClick Bid Manager in the end is our programmatic buying solution where advertisers can bid on individual impressions. It's a best-in-class DSP, so to help you can use DBM to reach audience you care about in real time. So DBM is able to buy display media across all the exchanges globally in real time. So it's really powerful because it can reach over 37 billion impressions every day from all that exchanges possible over 40 countries, including mobile, video, rich media, even private deals, private inventory. On top of that, we use machine learning technology and prediction algorithms that analyze each impression in real time, paying only what each impression is worth to each advertiser in each campaign. So this is a really sophisticated technology for programmatic targeting, and we are really able to leverage, specific information about your first-party audience, because we can share the remarketing segments we have seen in GAP with this technology. And this is completely rebuilt on Google technology, so it leverages Google's strengths in terms of scale and speed to analyze and make bids in real time. So this is really key. If we move to the next slide, for example, here we have included some examples of different ways to create different segments to narrow down the list of segments. So in our story, we had just 3 characters, but imagine the real world. So it is only the automatic integration that makes remarketing with Google Analytics data faster, easier, and more accurate. Because when it comes to remarketing, it's a matter of seconds in order to deliver the right message to a user at the right time. And only with this integrated technology, you can really achieve a great results when it comes to ROI or a reduction of CPA. So if we move to the next slide, once you are able to activate the first-party data that you have in GA with DoubleClick, DBM, basically what you can do in DBM is you can blend first-party GA data with your third-party audience data. You may have licenses from other vendors. You can create sophisticated targeting with inclusions, exclusion rules, and you can do all that in DBM. Let's say in this example, for example, in the slide, you can take visitors for the Europe section of your website and overlap with adults 35-54 for a more targeted campaign. This is just an example. So once you have, the list shared, users are populated in real time, so you can reach audiences you care about at the right time with the right message through DBM. So again, this is really, really powerful. So as a recap of this integration, the Google Analytics Premium and DoubleClick Bid Manager integration allows you to leverage the first-party data that you have in your analytics account. You can use it smartly, so you can use machine learning to have our algorithms try to suggest other segments of users based on the likelihood they have to convert on a given marketing goal. And then in DBM, you can blend the first-party data with third-party data list to achieve a more accurate real-time targeting for your users. Moving to the next slide. So here, for example, a couple of great case studies that we recently published. So we have published a case study with L'Oreal Canada, a publisher case study with BT, British Telecom in the UK. We have another great case study coming that was recently published with TalkTalk, another telco in the UK. So the number of leading organizations that are enabling this integration is increasing every day, because the way they can leverage their first-party data with media buying is really easy. It's a native auto-targeting integration whenever you have these technologies, and you can really see the benefit coming out of this integration. In fact, if we move to the next slide, this is a summary slide from a research we did together with Boston Consulting Group in the States, based on a panel of 15 big advertisers representative of 5 different verticals in the US. That are adopting our integrated platform. So they are both using, in this case, Google Analytics Premium, DoubleClick Campaign Manager, DoubleClick Bid Manager, the full stack. And this is a preview of the results that they are getting out of this integration. So we see in all of these situations a reduction of CPA around the average of 40% CPA reduction, and a great results in terms of ROI, because in a way we are enabling this full stack. We're putting this full stack at work for these advertisers, because they can leverage their own data, their first-party data about their audiences in a more efficient way, buying media programmatically, better knowing the audiences that are behind the impressions that they buy programmatically from the different exchanges in the market. In the next slide, so the last integration I'd like to talk about, and we close on this, on my session, is DoubleClick Search. So very shortly, DoubleClick Search is our bidder on search. So basically, it is a platform that helps you run cross-search engine marketing campaigns. So with one single interface, you can manage search across multiple engines. So not even the Google Display Network, but also Bing, Yahoo, and other search engines. And it is easy and familiar AdWords-like UI. But the cool thing is the real added value is that DoubleClick Search is smart bid optimization to run high impact campaigns. So you have different bidding strategies that are run by an algorithm that can really optimize the search bidding across different search engines. So if we move to the next slide. So basically, with this integration, there are a couple of things we can do between Google Analytics Premium and double-click search. So we can integrate analytics metrics from GA Premium to double-click search. So what you can expect is, of course, when you see a double-click search report, you can also see analytics metrics like the bounce rate, the time that users spent on the page, the keyword, the correlation between the keyword and the conversion, and so on and so forth. But the most important thing I would say is that these feeds, these signals, this information from analytics, from first-party data from analytics, can feed into the bidding strategies. So again, the algorithms that optimize the search investment can also rely on data coming from Analytics Premium to do a better job when it comes to optimizing bid strategies and search. So again, in the next slide, you can use Google Analytics conversion for bid optimization and double-click search. So you can not only measure post-click engagement and conversion metrics, but also funnel that back into your bid optimization. So this is really the value, because with bid strategies, you can state your business goals. You can say the different business goals you want to optimize, the algorithm to optimize, and then rely on a powerful engine on those goals. So it's really, easy to plug in technology to get data from GAP to help double-click search optimize also on analytics metrics. So next slide. This is the summary for this integration. So again, you can view rich engagement metrics in double-click search, and you can use Google Analytics conversion to optimize the bids. So again, if you put all this in the context of the double-click integrations and the broader context of this session about campaign optimization with analytics, you see that as a next step, where we see leading organizations are investing is leveraging, investing in integrated platforms that can really plug in together ad-centric and site-centric data to put, to activate the data is not only, to provide you a layer of analysis, but also to provide you a layer of activation. So to activate data on media buying, this is where leading organizations are investing to plug in different technologies that were siloed before. And the very last comment is about attribution. Another key benefit of Google Analytics Premium is that we can provide something called data-driven attribution. So you are familiar with last click. Eric also the other time already did a good job to explain what attribution modeling is. But data-driven attribution is a model that is for marketers that are using multiple channels and that are trying to figure out what channel is working the best. So the way the algorithmic attribution model works is it analyzes every different conversion path. Normally we are talking about thousands and more of different conversion paths. And just to keep it simple, for the first path, for every user like me that first searched it and later received an email ad, like in this example, in this case, for example, we had a 2% chance of converting. Let's take the second path now. For every user that searched and then saw a display ad and then received an email ad, they had a 3% chance of converting. So you can see that the display ad increases the likelihood to convert by 50%. Okay, this is a simplified, of course, example for the purpose of this slide. But this is based on a very complex Shapley model, statistical model. It is not a black box because you can actually download it from the tool. And we have customers that are leveraging this solution as an easier way to get into attribution, because picking up a model yourself, a rule-based model, is not easy, because then you need to answer a lot of questions like which model, why, with which I should compare and why, and which is the uplift, blah blah blah. So it's not an easy one. I'm not saying this is the final solution to attribution, because this should deserve a dedicated webinar, because it's a very complex topic, but it's an easier way to get into attribution because it's an algorithmic model, and you can use this model to start questioning the last click model and better understand your data. So this is also something that comes with Google Analytics Premium, and it is relevant talking about the double-click integrations, because of course, if you also integrate double-click data with Google Analytics Premium, this model is going to take into account also the impressions coming from the double-click campaigns. So it can only be better because it can optimize and give you insights based on the customer journey from the moment the user was exposed to an ad to the moment the user is converting on your website. So I think we can skip the next two slides, and for the purpose of time. So thanks a lot for your time. Let me know should you have any questions. I would be happy to follow up with Eric and in our team to make sure we are able to answer any questions that you might have after this session and this presentation.
Thank you very much. Roberto. Very interesting topic. As Roberto mentioned, we could easily devote a whole webinar just to the algorithmic help that Google Analytics can provide in getting past last click attribution, and all the points that Roberto was discussing, and some of the points that I discussed point towards more of a user-centric focus. Not just looking at the last click, but also in the case of attribution, looking at ad impressions that also influence conversion, and also folding your Google Analytics audience data back onto your bidding strategy and back onto your search strategy. It's very, very powerful stuff. And maybe we will have coming up, or in one of the additional webinars in the series, maybe we will be able to devote some more attention just to this topic with remarketing and also the algorithmic assistance for attribution modeling, having Google Analytics through patterns, through smart lists, through showing you which behaviors tend to lead to conversion and which segments are therefore most likely to convert and which segments you should therefore most likely advertise to. It's very compelling stuff. So we went through it very quickly, but any more questions about this, definitely reach out to us or reach out to Roberto directly. So thanks again, Roberto, and your actions. Okay, getting back to some of the basic stuff, make sure to campaign tag your inbound links. Make sure to download the campaign worksheet if you need help with maintaining consistent campaign parameters. Campaignalyzer, check that out for enterprise campaign tracking, and also again for any of the double-click integration topics, make sure to reach out to Enor or to Roberto specifically about the double-click integration, the algorithmic, data-driven attribution, any of the premium features. Additional resources, you can always check out Google Analytics Academy, Google Analytics, and Google Tag Manager solution guides, and the Enor blog. We have more information about the campaign topics, the channels topics that we discussed today. Sorry that we did go over. Thank you for hanging on. Sorry we went over somewhat significantly today. I apologize about that, but thank you for hanging on. I will be able to stay on for a while for Q&A, and I will go through all of the questions that have been posted to Q&A. So if you did post a question, I will go through those now. If you need to depart fully understood, you can follow up with us at any point. Training at e-nord.com. Sorry, we don't have that. Training at e-nord.com, or you can reach out to Roberto directly, rcroci at enor.com. I'm sorry, rcroci at google.com. So thank you for your attendance today. We will go into Q&A at this point. Okay, question. How to track customers for a specific location or region that I could generate leads for my business. That will track automatically. Your Google Analytics geodata will be tracked by default as part of the hit. So you do not have to specify region. If you go into your geo reports, you would be able to drill down all the way to the city level. From continent, you could drill down all the way to city level. That is captured by default. You have to be a little bit careful when you get down to the very granular levels of data in geodata in Google Analytics, just because your location is determined by the ISP that you use to that you use to access the internet. So sometimes the city data will show up as the city where your ISP is located. So if you go down to the city level, you can use the data somewhat directionally, but you wouldn't necessarily want to take that completely literally. You can also use your regional data for any kind of remarketing. We may plan another session just on remarketing that's related to some of the topics that Roberto was discussing earlier. And let me see if Roberto is still, yeah, Roberto had to depart. But you can also use geographical data when you're setting up your remarketing audiences within Google Analytics. So you don't need to do anything specific to capture your geo data. If you are looking to market specifically to a region, you can certainly do that in AdWords. You can target a specific region in AdWords. And if you're setting up a Google Analytics remarketing audience, you can use the geo data or any of the data in Google Analytics. And that's, again, somewhat related to what Roberto was discussing with the remarketing. You can do remarketing through DoubleClick, but you can also do remarketing through AdWords as well, even with Google Analytics Standard. So thank you for the question about geodata. Okay, let's see what else we have here. Okay. When doing email campaigns using Outlook, is there a way to track emails sent to a group or large group of emails in terms of open rate and click rate? When you're sending out a campaign from any platform, as long as you use the campaign tags for your inbound links, you'll be able to see the click-through rate. Now, measuring open rate, that's a different story. Open rate open rate is reported in the platform itself. If it's not reported in a platform, such as I haven't worked with Outlook as actually for sending out emails, you can actually use the measurement protocol, the Google Analytics measurement protocol, to send data to Google Analytics when someone opens an email. So if you Google Analytics email open measurement protocol, the measurement protocol is the basic way to send data to Google Analytics through just a regular HTTP request. And there you can send data to Google Analytics to measure open rate as well, with not necessarily open rate, but at least opens. You would be able to see the number of opens for a specific email campaign. That's definitely more of an advanced technique, and normally for open rates, you report that within the tool, within whatever your email tool is, but you can use the measurement protocol as well if you wanted to track opens within your email. So if you just Google Analytics measurement protocol email opens, you should be able to find some resources on that. Let's see. Okay, if you have blogs on a subdomain using UTM parameters to track visits from the blog to the website via navigation, is this a good practice? That's a good question. That's a very good question. The answer actually is, in most cases, no. You would not want to use campaign parameters to track traffic from a subdomain to a main domain. With cross-domain and subdomain tracking, and that may be another candidate for an upcoming webinar. With cross-domain and the subdomain tracking, the first question that you want to ask yourself is, is the subdomain considered a separate user experience? If it's considered a separate user experience, if you consider your blog and your main website to be completely separate user experiences, then you can just track them as separate Google Analytics properties. If you consider them to be part of the same user experience, you can use the same Google Analytics tracking code. You can use the same property on both of the websites, and then you would just be able to see the navigation summary and see how the traffic is flowing from the blog to the main website and vice versa as well. On the eNOR blog, we have a very detailed resource on subdomain and cross-domain tracking. So if you go to e-nor.com, click on blog and just search for cross-domain or subdomain, we have a very, very detailed resource on cross-domain and subdomain tracking. But good question. It's interesting to back up and sometimes consider some of the fundamental approaches that way. Okay. And that is it for the questions. Thank you very much for the folks who have hung on. We've gone way over. We covered a lot of ground today. Some of the basic stuff in terms of campaign tracking, basic but very important and sometimes overlooked, and honestly something that most organizations still are not doing consistently. So at a basic level, if you could get that consistency in your campaign tracking at a minimum, download that worksheet, use that worksheet, make sure that you're using consistent medium source values, make sure that you're using meaningful campaign names for an enterprise solution. Go ahead and look at campaignalyzer.com. And again, I'm just going to, sorry that it didn't include some of this information right in the slides. I'm just going to go ahead. For any additional questions, please go ahead and contact training@enor.com for any of the questions about the premium features, the double-click integration, the data-driven attribution. Feel free to send them to training@enor.com as well, or you could contact Roberto directly. Roberto covered a lot of very interesting, really kind of next generation, real user-centric features that are available. Some of them available in premium only. And also, if you have any suggestions about upcoming webinars as well, please feel free to just shoot us an email at training@enor.com. So thanks again for hanging on until considerably after the scheduled end time, and we hope to see you in an upcoming webinar. And we also hope to see you if you are in Dubai or you'd like to come to Dubai, we'll be doing training on coming up December 8th through 10th. So we hope to see you. We'll have our next webinar date sometime in December, so be on the lookout for that scheduling, and make sure to, if you can and you want a real deep dive into Google Analytics, make sure to join us in Dubai. I will be there doing the training. Roberto should be joining us as well. So thank you for your attention, and we look forward to seeing you on an upcoming webinar or seeing you in training.